Hi, my name is Jaime, and this is my 67 Toyota Stout. So I start taking this truck apart, all the bolts are just breaking. Chunks of rust like just falling on the ground. So then I realized how bad it really was. Currently, I work at Jason's Wheel Repair. I fix wheels. Before that, I worked at couple different air ride shops, learning suspension, how to wire like manifolds for air ride and all that type of stuff, and how to build what I drive. Growing up, my dad always had like 60s, early 70s, like muscle cars. Like he had a 70 Charger, a couple like mid 60s Novas, stuff like that. So I always grew up around cars. So when I started to drive, I wanted a little truck, right? So I can throw stuff in the back and get around. And of course you can't leave anything stock. So we started to modify it. And I was looking for people to do the work, and the work that I was getting done wasn't really what I wanted. So then I ended up changing things and modifying myself, and then learning what I wanted to do, I guess, to like not even like a standard of what I wanted, but the certain stylings. You can't really like explain to someone that doesn't really understand what you're trying to portray, and then just made stuff my own. So we have a 67 Toyota Stout. It has a 2RZ, which is a 2.4 liter. It's a first generation Toyota Tacoma. Some 4Runners came with it. It's a 2.4 liter. It's got a 5-speed transmission, which is factory to that block for the subframe that's under it still. But it was bone stock, and it's still significantly stock. But I modified the valve cover because I got rid of all the charcoal canisters and all the emission stuff. So I had to weld and smooth out a lot of the valve cover because these newer engines have, you know, wires and hoses going everywhere. So I modified the valve cover, and then I modified the intake manifold. I pretty much cut it in half, replated it, and then smoothed the whole thing out and had all that stuff powder coated. Because the fenders and the firewall are stout, like the intake box, radiator support, all of that, none of it fit. So all of that is all custom for it to have the proper mounting points, like it's all built in. The air box is all custom made, and it pulls air from the front of the truck. So above the headlight, there's these like vent holes that used to go into the cab for fresh air. And there used to be, at the bottom of the cab, there used to be a little lever where you would kick the lever with your foot, and it would open this little wing window, and you would get fresh air, and that would come through here. And it would be like a tube that ran through the top of the fender into the cab. So I used that opening in the front to go into my cold air intake. So now it gets air from the outside in the front and not inside of the engine bay. I'm constantly having to modify and update and upgrade the parts that I built for it to make the drivability better. Like I can get in this thing any day and drive 6-7 hours somewhere and not have to worry about anything. So the wheels on it are 18-inch US Mag Heritage wheels. I had this like idea, or kind of like a dream, right, to take the truck to SEMA. So I reached out to US Mags, and I was like, yo, can I put some wheels on my truck? Like, what do you guys think? And they're like, oh, well, come by the facility, and we can show you how we make the wheels and how everything happens. So they're 2-piece billet forged wheels. So then the centers are machined to whatever design, you know, you pick out of their catalog. They're not like on the shelf. They have the barrels. The barrels are a 1 unit, and then they have the different measurements in width and height. Now the centers have to get machined. So then I went down there, they showed us the forged billets, which is just a chunk of aluminum. They're like, okay, this is gonna be your wheel. It was pretty cool, right? So then they put that in the machine, it's all programmed. I picked these wheels because they remind me of an old Western turbine wheel, which was like a 70s, 80s style wheel, but obviously modern and a lot nicer. And they fit perfect. The truck itself has this patina on it. The blue that you see that comes through is the original blue for the truck. When the truck was imported and bought by the state for the ports in Long Beach, they painted it this like brown color. So under all of the blue, like behind the grill and the headlights, is this blue. So whatever's coming through that's blue is what was the original color. And you can see some of it in the interior as well, like the back wall, none of the interior got painted outside, and then the roof is white. For whatever reason, they painted the roof white. And then the tailgate is white. Funny story about the tailgate. We went to Toyota Fest. There was a gentleman that walked up to me, and he comes up to me and he says, "Hey, is this your truck?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "I remember this truck." And I'm like, "Okay, let's hear it." And he was like, "Yeah." He's like, "I used to run the service station at the ports in Long Beach." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. You got me, you got my attention now, right?" And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Yeah, this truck used to shuttle people from my service station to the docks, and they would shuttle people in the bed. So they would have a bench seat in the bed. They would shuttle people to the port, and then they would drive the cars that were being imported back to the service station, and then they ran the custom shop for Toyota." So he said that this truck, and that's why the tailgate's white, because they would take the tailgates off so people can climb into the truck. And once the truck was then sold, whatever was lying around, "Oh, we have this tailgate, put it on." So then it got a white tailgate at the time. That was pretty cool to actually, get some like history on what the truck was, or to even have someone recognize it 50 years later, whatever it is. Yeah, well, my very first car was a 1990 Ford Mustang 5.0. So it was a hatchback. But yeah, I probably had that car maybe a year before I got my truck. But at the time, that was in, I want to say, so I got that car in 96. So then in 2004, I bought my Tacoma, which was a 2001. So at the time, it was 3 years old. I bought it from a dealer. It was low miles, like someone traded it in. And probably like a couple months after having it, I cut it apart and air ride it. It was just lame frame at the time. It wasn't nothing, it wasn't like crazy or nothing, but I learned as I went to, upgrading things and changing, and you break stuff and you fix it, and you break it again because you drive it like you should, and it just escalated from there. So I started looking for a truck, and I wanted something older. So I was looking for a 79 to 82 Toyota pickup. I like that body style, and I thought it was old enough to where if I can find something that had some cool patina, I'm like, oh, this will be a cool build, just lay it out and enjoy it. It's hard. Like there isn't, the people that have these trucks, they're the I know what I got, type of people. So it's like you're spending 10 grand for a truck that's, you still got to put another 20, 30 into it to make it roadworthy. So I was looking around, and a buddy of mine had bought this Stout, and it was completely stock, and he just sends me a picture and he's like, "Yo, check this out. I just bought the Stout." For me, it was like dream truck, holy grail. It's the first generation Toyota pickup imported into the United States. So they came in at 65. They were put in 4 showrooms across the US, and none of them sold. And in 66, a few hundred sold. And then in 67, around 3,000 trucks sold. And then that was it. So finding one is hard enough, or finding one in decent condition is hard enough, because there's the ones that are out there they got wrecked and they're sitting in yards or fields, and there's no parts to fix any of them. So a lot of them sat. So my buddy bought this truck, and I told him, I was like, "Hey, if you're ever ready to sell it, let me know, I'm down." He's like, no way, I'm never going to sell it. So then like a month later, he messages me. He's like, "Yo, you want to buy this truck? My girl and I are expecting a kid." He told me what he wanted, which was what he paid. I was like, "Cool, I'll buy it off you, but I don't have anywhere to park it." He's like, "If you want, just cash me out and you can leave it here in my yard." I went, and this is February 2021. I paid him out. The truck sat in his backyard for another 2 years. The whole intention with the build was to find a truck that was old enough to look cool, but potentially motor swap something newer into it to make it reliable so I can daily drive it. Because I always wanted to drive something older but reliable, and usually those two words don't go together. So it's either older and cool or reliable and, lame. So we had some space here at the shop, and my boss was like, yo, you can use this space that we have here, but you have to get on it. Like, there's no downtime. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna swap it in. I have a harness. It shouldn't take me long. The swap came from a 2003 Toyota Tacoma. That truck came from another buddy of mine, Vic. When I got the truck, I thought it was gonna be easy enough to swap because, like I said, the truck was complete. My buddy Vic had this Tacoma that he had gotten rear-ended, and he parked the truck and non-opped it. It sat for like 3 or 4 years. He put a new bed on it, and then he went to register it again, and the truck wouldn't start. The battery went dead, and then the tires went flat. So he was like, I'm over this truck, I'm just gonna part it out. So I'm like, well, what do you want? And I had a set of Recaro LX fishnet seats. And he was like, well, what do you want for the seats? I'm like, oh, like $1,000. He's like, well, I'll trade you for the motor. And I was like, done, let's go. And he was like, but it's still in the truck. Like, you know, do you want to just, I'm like, yeah, I'll just take the whole truck, whatever. I'll part out whatever I don't need. Now I have a engine, harness, transmission, differential, everything that I need to put into this truck. I'm like, cool. So I start taking this truck apart, and I'm taking the fenders off, and all the bolts are just breaking. There's chunks of rust, like just falling on the ground, like the whole truck's falling apart. So then I realized how bad it really was. It got to a point where I'm like, okay, so then now I got to change gears, right? So doing a swap on this thing is not gonna be sufficient, because now everything, I was realizing the whole underside of the truck was rotted under all the paneling. So I thought, okay, I have this whole other truck. The chassis was straight, the truck just didn't run. For whatever reasons, it sat for a long time. So I started messing with that truck, found out it was a fuel pump. Changed out the fuel pump, truck started right up. Okay, cool. So now I have a whole complete truck. So then I thought, okay, I could just body swap it. All the sheet metal from the Stout onto the Tacoma. So I started doing a bunch of measurements, and it's like, you know, back in the 80s and 90s, people would take a 30s or 40s or like the 50s trucks and put them on like a S10 chassis, right? You got modern suspension, modern, you know, engine. So I was like, why not? Start making some measurements, and the Tacoma was probably an inch wider and an inch and a quarter shorter than what the Stout was. So I'm like, okay, cool. I can take up those differences in what I build when I drop the cab on the chassis, and because in my mind, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna body drop this thing. I'm gonna do 4-link. I'm gonna air ride, all that. So there's room for tolerances when you do all that stuff too, right? So you can take up the differences, and an inch and a half is nothing when you're, you know, extending the lower control arm or shortening stuff. It's not a big deal. So I'm like, cool, like we can make this work. So then I cut the entire floor and the firewall out of the Stout, everything that was rotted. That was still attached to the Stout chassis, and we just picked the cab off of the chassis and just wheeled the whole frame out from under it, and all of that just went away. Then I cut all the sheet metal off of the Tacoma cab and only kept the firewall and the floor. So then everything was attached to the firewall, like my heater core, my AC, computer paneling, all my wiring, everything was attached to the firewall. So then all I did was drop the shell of the Stout over that, and then I lowered it 4.5 inches, bringing the floor of the Tacoma level to the floor of the Stout. So it's like, they would call it like a stock floor body drop, where you don't lose any headspace, but you're also lowering the height of the cab. And it worked out because the floor of the Stout had like a step that went up about 4 inches, where there was a bench seat that was built into the floor. So when I cut all that out, it essentially gave me that extra more room to level the floor pan. So if you open, like when you open the doors, it looks stock. I got everything on the truck, on the chassis, turnkey, in about, I wanna say about 3.5, 4 months. I just put insurance on it, and then I started driving it. I drove it for a few months and everything was cool. So then I'm like, all right, okay, I'm gonna start cutting this thing apart again. I first did the front suspension air ride. So I plumbed everything with my management, and then I did the whole front suspension. So the front was adjustable, and I drove that for about, I wanna say about 2 months. I started sourcing more parts to do the back. So I sourced parts, I had everything that I needed. So then I put the truck back up on the frame table, and literally cut the frame at the back wall of the cab. So now I only have what's under the cab and the front horns. That's like factory. So then I built this custom back half out of 2x4 rectangle quarter wall steel. Sourced the rear end from a 76 Toyota 1-ton. Had it all resealed, made sure everything was good, put all new brakes on it. And then I built my 4-link suspension using Hoppo's components. They have a billet wishbone that they make. I built the back half suspension around that piece because that's like kind of like the gem of the suspension, right? So I built everything around that and made sure that the wheels that I had were gonna tuck. They're 18 by 10s in the rear. So then it being that the bed sides taper in a little bit at the top, you kind of have to give yourself more tolerance so that you don't hit, you know, because the truck is body drop. So it's gonna cycle all the way up. Like there's no like, oh, it only goes up an inch or two. Like no, this thing's, it's on the ground. So that's probably the hardest part, is making room for all the stuff. I built the back half, put the fuel cell in, plumbed all that, wired all that. And then I just started building the frame structure for the bed, because the bed was completely rotted just like the rest of the truck. So there's no welding to like rotted steel, right? So I'm like, oh, I can build essentially a frame out of 1x1 square tube, like a skeleton of the structure of the bed, and then just hang the bed sides to it. So the bed sides are bolted to a 1x1 skeletal frame, and then that's bolted to the chassis. So I'm able to take the bed on and off like a normal bed, but it is built on a skeletal chassis, so then it's structurally sound. But I got that done, it just continued to drive it. And it's probably been about 1.5 years now that I've been driving it since, and it never lets me down. It's a 2003 Tacoma. Underside, like the engine, the drivetrain, all the functionalities of it, everything functions like a Tacoma. So it just, the outside of it looks like it does. And it's cool because no one knows what it is. I think the hardest part was putting myself in a position to work on it on like a Saturday morning when I've already done a full week of work, and then still 4 or 5 hours a day after work, and then still come in on my day off Saturday morning to do another 12 hours to potentially see like 3 hours of work. Because a lot of it is you're building something, you cut something, and you're like, oh, that doesn't fit, or that doesn't work. Or you think something's gonna work and you build it, you spend all this time, and then it's like, nope, it's trash. But that was probably the hardest part. It's pretty exciting. Last year, I was able to take my Tacoma to SEMA, and my wife, Georgia, was able to take her tofu truck as well. It's exciting to take something new. The fact that it's such a fresh build for me, and everything's been touched on this truck. Everything that, like even the badges on the fenders are custom badges to make it look like they're old badges. They're custom machine billet. But everything on this truck is to my potential, what I can do. So it's exciting to bring it and to work with all these companies that see the significance in what you're doing and think that it's cool as well, right? Because everyone wants to build something and they think it's cool, but maybe no one else thinks it's cool. Like, oh, that's fucking lame. I'm nervous and I'm scared and I'm excited at the same time. Honestly, okay, so my favorite part is I absolutely hate hood pins. Like I hate hood. To me, hood pins is like a cheap out. Like it's like the easy way out. Like, oh, you put a different hood, or your stuff doesn't align, so your hood doesn't latch. Like you just put hood pins. It's an easy fix. So when I did the swap, the radiator and the motor are so much larger than the factory Stout components that I took up a lot of the space in the front of right behind the grill. So my radiator's pushed as far forward as I can, right? Because it's got the shroud with the electric fans. And there was no room for the hood to latch, because right where the hood pin goes is where my radiator now is. So I had to redesign that whole assembly, move it back 4 inches, and then sheet metal everything in, and then make all that work and latch, and then have like a pull, cable to open, and it pops like it should. It's got a lock pin. The hood closes on its own properly. Is to me, I feel like that's probably my favorite part. I think for the moment I'm good, because everything I've done has been to a point where I can drive it and it's reliable and it's my daily driver. I don't want to go too overboard and then not be able to drive it to work every day. But once the engine does to say like, hey, I'm done, because it's got 240,000 miles on it. It's original miles on the motor. But once the engine does go and it, whatever happens, then I'll put a larger engine in it. I'll put maybe a V8 or a inline 6 or something with a blower out the hood or a turbo out the fender or something. Why break it if it's not, or, you know, whatever the saying is.
Guess what, motherfucker? We're bringing the Burnyard back to SEMA.
That's right, everybody was saying, y'all not coming back, we coming.
Listen, we're talking new build reveals, giveaways, athlete signings, and a whole lot of burnouts.
We probably shouldn't be letting the building.
That's why they keep us out front. SEMA 2025, we're bringing the shit back, baby.